Alrighty, so just to sort of do a quick check-in here, let me real quick jump on Google Drive so I can show you where we're at with the groups. Alrighty. So right now we have 1, 2, 3, 4 groups that I say would be good to go. Folks who only have one person, you may want to sort of collaborate with someone else, see if you can get it to collapse. And if you're not in a group, go ahead and move yourself to a group. Maybe you can also chat with these folks. Yeah, typically people give me a list of 3 topics and then I can collapse better, but a lot of people just gave me 1. So that made it a little trickier, but that's okay. We'll figure it out. The other things, just sort of looking forward that you should be thinking about. There we go. All right, so on Monday, quiz 2 is due. If you want a paper copy, just let me know and I can print those. But it's also posted on Blackboard. I know a lot of you have already met with me and some of you are meeting with me in the next 2 days. So be thinking about meeting with me. If you can't get your meeting in by Friday, you can certainly set up a meeting for next week and that's fine. We'll also have quiz 3 coming up fairly quickly after that. And then in October, you'll get your midterm, which again is take home. So just sort of keeping those things on your radar. And hopefully by Monday, we can have the groups sort of ironed out for everything. Any questions about logistics for the groups, the quizzes, any of that good stuff? Alrighty, well, we're a little light on people today, which will be extra fun because we've only got a few, we have 2 case studies today, but that's okay. So I will have, that's all the room. I'll do that. We've got Luke and Matt today. And so you'll do identifying info and background history of the whole. Oh, you need to come. Yes. Yep, exactly. Alrighty, let's do the 4 of y'all do symptoms, testing, results, and diagnosis for both. Alright, and we'll have y'all do impact on latency and treatment and effectiveness. Yeah, you're welcome. I got a copy right here if you want to just borrow mine. No problem. Yeah, I always bring one of those things so that happens. And same deal, once you're done, go ahead and write it up. Why don't we make one side Beth and one side Luke? So I'll go ahead and label them. So this side will be Beth. And then the other side of the screen will be Luke. resume recording. Over here. And then you should be able to hear me through my phone. Okay. So tell us about that. What's her identifying info? Yep. Sounds good. Alrighty. Next up, tell us about her. I forgot how you refer to this. Her symptoms. Who were our symptom folks? Who wrote up symptoms for Beth? Okay, cool. Walk us through it. Exactly. Yeah. Okay, actually, I'm going to turn off this camera because I just think it's going to be easier to use this one. Alrighty. All right, next up we have her testing results. Looks like nobody wrote those up. That's okay. Where are they? Oh, they're down there. Okay, cool. Yeah, so temporal parietal, so sort of between the temporal and the parietal lobe. Yeah, and there's no way you could know how to pronounce this with Wernicke. Yeah, so she had Wernicke's aphasia, which we'll learn quite a bit about in the coming days. Some other things I had, flip this around so people can see me, is she had reasonable comprehension of spoken and simple written English, difficulty comprehending syntactic function words, like the cat is under the chair. Her reading wasn't great even before. Oh, sorry, this is Luke. Wrong one. Okay. Testing results. They were unable to do formal testing because of her lack of comprehension and difficulty communicating. They did a CT and an angiogram. That's all they could do. They couldn't do neuropsych testing because her comprehension was so bad. I was like, this doesn't sound like Beth, because it wasn't. And then one of the things I did have is that when she wrote her name, she would write it as Beth with like 3 T's. Okay, so even her own name, he was struggling with. Alrighty. All right, next up, let's talk about impact on life and family, which is down here. Yeah, unfortunately, they're not all happy, shiny endings, right? And that's something I actually often have to remind people on your midterm and your final, you do like a mini version of this. And I just have to remind people like, not everybody's gonna get better, right? Unfortunately, it doesn't happen because people want to be like, yeah, this person had like a whole left hemisphere stroke, but they're fine. Like, probably not, right? So yeah, that can happen. Um, and yeah, it's really distressing for the family, right? For her to not recognize them. Alrighty, go ahead and tell me about her treatment. Yeah, yeah, and I like this note. I don't know if it was supposed to go with treatment or impact, but that the idea that she might have lost her inner speech, right? Like all of us have some form of inner world, right? Whether we think in pictures or like 3D images or words or combination thereof, right? So when you lose all of that, it becomes really disturbing for you. Um, so yeah, I'm gonna walk over to do Luke, and I'm bringing my notes just because every once in a while, rarely, I have something y'all missed. So, alrighty, so go ahead and walk us through his identifying info and background information.
Said powerfully built Maori band because she like stuck out the her.
Does everyone know who the Maori people or Maori people are? They're the indigenous people from New Zealand. So they'd be like the equivalent of our American Indian, Native American tribal name folks.
Really, from a large family for area. He left school at 15, and then he had some employment off and on, but was mostly unemployed. It said he spent most of his time riding motorbikes, petty thieving, playing snooker, smoking marijuana, and basically binge drinking.
What a life.
Yeah, depended a lot on what checks and stuff. And his mother stated his reading was poor before his hemorrhage, so it eventually makes it hard to assess the testing for him. Didn't have any major previous head injuries, but had a three minor ones from fights and motorbike accidents. And his friends found him collapsed at a party the night before.
Yeah, yeah. So obviously, just like with folks who play American football, right, or armed service members, armed forces members, um, multiple head injuries are bad, right? When you get basically they compound. I don't know if no, I guess it would have been a thing, but like CTE, I don't think was as much in the dialogue when Ogden wrote your book, but we're looking at something like CTE when you're looking at these multiple head injuries. Yeah. All right. So tell us about his symptoms and testing results. Yeah, and that's what I was saying before when I had the wrong thing up, where it's like he didn't understand the cat was under the table. Like he wouldn't understand the word under. Yeah, and then the testing, yeah. Apraxia is, another one of those words. There's no way you all would know how to pronounce it, right? But yeah, exactly. Okay, so yeah, so he has aphasia. Yeah. So we just learned about someone with Wernicke's aphasia, and then this is the other most common type of aphasia, Broca's aphasia. So this is somehow I muted myself. No, I'm good. Okay. Technology, y'all. I also feel like I'm making people seasick because I can't stay still when I talk. So apologies. But yeah, exactly. So he is having a different part of his brain affected, and so it's affecting how he comprehends speech in a different way. Exactly. All right. What's the impact on his life and family? Yeah, having that social support can be so important, right? And this is this communal way of looking at things is very common among Indigenous peoples. Alrighty, and how about the treatment when he did finally say? And I'm blanking on what it is right now too, so I'll have to look it up when I'm back at the computer. Exactly. So again, two people, both with aphasia, right? And totally different experiences. Yeah, that's gonna help. Yeah. And both of those will help, right? Um, this is not what he had, but there is a disease you can get called Korsakoff syndrome. When you drink excessive amounts of alcohol. And in fact, if you look at my if you look at my um blanking, wow. If you look at my sample paper on Blackboard, I wrote mine about Korsakoff syndrome. But it's essentially because you're getting most of your calories from alcohol, you can end up with a thiamine, like vitamin B deficiency. And it can cause all kinds of problems like both anterograde and retrograde amnesia, which means you can't remember stuff from your past and you can't make new memories. And again, he didn't have that, but we know that drinking a lot is going to negatively affect the brain. My favorite part about Korsakoff syndrome is that the way the alcohol companies decided to address it was just to add thiamine to their alcohol so that they didn't lose their best customers. Capitalism, yay! Yeah. Oh, sure. Yep, I'll come over, yeah. Unable to speak, difficulty comprehending syntactic words, and then the apraxia, that arm movement issue. Yeah, and in his case, he did have reasonable comprehension, but as Mayu said, he didn't read very well beforehand, right? So like, that makes it extra tricky as well. So yeah, again, as I just mentioned, here we have two people, both with aphasias, which are problems of language, but with two totally different trajectories, right? Again, like some of these cases are very, very sad, and we saw Beth pass away, right? And then we saw Luke make a pretty good recovery and even make some excellent lifestyle changes, right? That probably made him healthier than before it happened. And that can happen. And again, it depends on the severity of your injury. Obviously, in Beth's case, it was also partially due to the fact that she had another stroke, right? That's not going to help. But it means that essentially we kind of don't know when people first come in to see us, even if we know, okay, they're having problems with language, this might be an aphasia. That doesn't mean we know what their trajectory is going to be. And so these are disorders of language. That's basically what aphasia means, is disorder of language. You can also, under this umbrella, have problems writing, and that is more typically called agraphia or agraphia. And then reading, and that's called alexia or alexia. Hopefully no one has Alexa on your phone, or it'll start talking to you. But that's from the same root as dyslexia, right? For people who just struggle with reading. And aphasias have to do with brain damage in the areas related to language. So even though they might have some of the same symptoms, it's not an aphasia if they're just experiencing loss of sensory input, like they're having hearing problems, partial or total deafness. That's not aphasia, right? And it's not aphasia if it's a motor problem. Like if they're just paralyzed and can't use their mouth to understand, to create language. You can also have something called paraphasia. And this is where you have, where you're producing unintended syllables, words, or phrases when you're trying to speak. So you might distort the intended word, or produce a completely unintended word. And so basically aphasias in general, and specifically your book talks about fluent aphasias, are an impairment in the reception of language. And in this case, they'll have fluent speech, but difficulties in auditory verbal comprehension, or in repeating words or phrases or sentences. So Wernicke's aphasia that we saw here, and everywhere I've seen people at least talk about this casually, they still call it Wernicke's, but some people now just call it sensory aphasia, because it's more descriptive. So they have problems classifying sounds. Their words will come out in like a word salad. So like basically be incomprehensible to other people. They'll confuse phonetic characteristics of sounds. They often cannot write at all. And they'll have a severe comprehension deficit in written and spoken words. So Wernicke's aphasia, probably not surprisingly, comes from an area of the brain known as Wernicke's area. And it's one of the areas of the brain that really does focus in on language. And so what they think happens is that word meaning is represented in Wernicke's area of the brain. And Wernicke's and Broca's areas are both on the left side of your brain. So again, how I was saying, not that many things in the brain are lateralized. This is an exception. Language is on the left side of our brain. And so if you have a stroke, a head injury, something that specifically affects Wernicke's aphasia or Wernicke's area, sorry, then you're going to have trouble with word meaning. Then when we get to Broca's area, which was what was affected in Luke, then basically Wernicke sends the information about word meanings to Broca's area, and Broca's sends instructions for speech articulation to the motor cortex. So Broca's area basically tells us what we need to do in order to talk. And to read, visual areas send information to Wernicke's and Broca's areas. So this is why written word is also problematic. So I have a couple examples of folks with Wernicke's and Broca's aphasia. These, I should warn you, like some of the other videos we've seen, they're kind of hard to watch, right? Because these are people who are clearly trying to communicate, but like really struggling to do so through no fault of their own, just because of this brain damage they have. Just a little side note, I'm not sure exactly what subtype he has, but aphasia is actually what Bruce Willis has and why he retired from acting.
Their foot, you know, boom.
Just a sec, I'm gonna maximize this for us.
What's this?
You know,
I'm also gonna get it on the overhead speakers.
big end right there, end of the football.
End of the football?
It influenced the football right here. The cause that it comes in, see?
Yeah.
The end of it, see?
So I think what he's trying to articulate is it feels like there's a football in his mouth, like he can't get out this information.
Oh, we have a lot of things, see?
I don't understand.
Well, it's pliable in the other, see? You don't understand it, but it's in the long reed comes from there, and it comes source from the country out here, see? All the under it, see, it comes up, and finally come out here and goes out, see? Get it?
Sort of.
Yeah, it comes out here, see, it comes out here, and here,
Uh-huh.
and it comes in, and it comes out, and bing. That's a good fly throw, see?
That's a good what?
That's a good flow goes fly, see, it flows cold, or it gives, or kicks out, or bing, or whatever it is. We has no football about it out. It's just pulling, see, but they feel it. Oh, I guess you meant you have beds, see, I don't know.
Where do you live?
Where do you live? You're up here, see?
Where do you?
This is that word salad, right, that I was describing, where, I mean, if you didn't listen to what he was saying, you just sort of tuned out and listened to the rise and fall, it sounds like he's making normal speech, right? But then when you listen in, like, he's not, right? He's making a whole bunch of sounds that can lead to all kinds of different comprehensive issues, obviously.
Where do you live, Doc?
Where do you live?
Where do you live?
Where do you live is, well, if there's around here. You?
You used to be a dentist.
Yes,
Yeah. Where?
right here.
Maybe that's what he was trying to talk about earlier, the fact that he was a dentist, right? So obviously, in order to be a dentist, right, in order to be any kind of doctor, you have to be pretty intelligent. You have to go through a whole bunch of schooling and pass boards and things like that. So again, just sort of pointing out that this is not because he's unintelligent or anything like that. I looked it up while we were watching that video, and Bruce Willis actually has frontotemporal dementia. But it's aphasia is one of his symptoms, basically. So it's not aphasia on its own. So this is another brief video of someone with Wernicke's, again, just so you can kind of get a feel for what this looks like for someone.
Thanks. And say baseball player. Okay.
So they're just trying to get her to repeat, and she's struggling to repeat.
Caterpillar, cantaloupe. Okay. All right. I'd like for you to do some things now with your mouth. First thing I'd like for you to do is stick out your tongue. Stick your tongue? Great. Show me how you would kiss. Show me how you love to kiss me. There you go. Good. Show me how you sip on a straw. Can you sip on a straw? See what a sip sticks. See what a sip sticks onto me.
So what they're testing here is not only her comprehension, but sometimes because these things have to do with the articulation of the mouth, these folks also can't do actions you would typically do with your mouth, like sipping on a straw, blowing your fist, things along those lines. So they're trying to get her to do that.
Okay, try this one. See, wait a minute. Listen. Show me how you smile. Show you how plus me. Show how plus me. Show how plus me. Show how plus me. Stop. Can you smile? Can you smile at me? No, don't smile at me. Don't say what I say. I want you to do this. Watch. What? Look at me. Smile. There you go. That wasn't very.
And so, again, these folks are having trouble comprehending, and then everything comes out for them in this word salad. Now, there are other types of aphasias that we will get to, but I want to talk about Broca's now as well, just because we had cases for each of those. Broca's is a non-fluent aphasia, and these folks have difficulty articulating, but relatively good auditory verbal comprehension. Broca's aphasia is also called expressive aphasia. So Wernicke's is also known as sensory aphasia. Broca's is also known as expressive aphasia. So again, they can understand speech, but they cannot produce speech, or if they can, it's very, very hard for them. So again, Broca's area holds a representation for articulating, creating words, and it sends instructions to the facial area of the motor cortex. If you stimulate this even in someone without this aphasia, people have a hard time making voluntary facial movements. So I have a couple different ones on Broca's. I'm going to start with a newer one. So this is a teenage girl who had a stroke at age 18. So someone younger than most of y'all in here. And she had Broca's, and so you'll kind of see she is like doing okay in the first video, but how much she struggles to say what she wants to say.
This week at Lidl, the deals are extra delicious.
Okay. So what's your name?
Scott. Oh, no. Sarah Scott.
That's right. And how old are you?
I can't.
Try.
I can't.
Oh. You're 19. 19. Yeah. And what happened to you?
So you'll see she has a little notepad And so sometimes for folks with Broca's, it can help to write stuff down. And so you might see her doing that a few times during this video.
Stroke.
You had a stroke last year.
Yes.
And what happened? Can you remember what happened?
School and English class,
Okay.
and I book and I read it aloud, but I can't because stroke, and so I turn and also it's the same as the same of kind of thing as you know,
Pins and needles.
yeah,
Like pins
the
and
same, and also arm as well.
needles. Leg.
Yeah,
Leg.
yeah.
And what happened after the stroke with your speech?
Well, I can't.
You have speech problems.
Yeah.
Do you know what that's called?
Yeah. Aphasia.
Yeah, good.
So she had to write it down, and just like y'all, she wouldn't have known that word, right? Prior to it happening to her. So yeah, you can see she's really struggling. And again, I think it's just so heartbreaking when, like, what happened to your speech? She just says, I can't, right?
Good. I haven't heard you say the word before.
I write it down because,
And that helps.
yeah.
Okay. So you are going to go to university. What are you doing now?
But
What do you do now? Every day.
speech, then the speech,
Therapy.
yeah,
Okay.
and
Just like Luke, she's undergoing intensive speech therapy, right? And I'm guessing her mom probably goes with her instead of her friends to make fun of her.
also riding.
Riding what?
Horses
Yeah, good.
and and connect.
Connect, yeah. You like Connect, don't you?
And it, yeah.
Why do you like Connect?
Aphasia, so I can the same kind of problems and speech, like, yeah.
Okay. And how do you feel?
I'm fine.
You're fine. That's good. Good. What helps you to speak? When you write things down, it helps you, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Sometimes.
I don't know, but I can't. Sometimes I write it down because it's easier, and also spoken is easier, so I don't know.
A mixture.
Yeah.
A mixture.
And I can't write like one word, I'm fine, but sometimes, but along sentences, I can't read, I can't write.
Can you read a book?
No.
Do you want to read a book?
Yes. But I can't.
You liked reading,
Yeah.
didn't you? And what about your friends? Do you still see your friends?
A little.
Is that hard for them?
Yeah. Because I can't speak a little, but it's harder. And I can't, sometimes, it's harder because speaking, I like my friends, like, it's too hard and I don't like it, so it's hard than friends, than,
Family.
yeah.
Yes.
So like, she's the one who's had this horrible thing happen to her. And then she's more concerned about how her friends feel, right, when this happens. So what I'm gonna do to give you all like a little bit more hope is to show you 6 years later. And the improvement she was able to make with all the therapy that she was going through.
Any toppings, one price. It's what makes Mod, Mod.
As I'm in the midst of applying for residency right now, wish me luck, Grammarly has again been a lifesaver with my application.
Hello, I'm Sarah Scott. So, new video, because it was my stroke anniversary last week. So I had my stroke 6 years ago, which is a long time, and it seems like yesterday.
I don't know how clearly y'all can see this on the screen, just because the video is a teeny bit grainy. But this side of her mouth is less articulate and sort of droops, so that tells me that the stroke happened on the other side of her brain, basically, because opposite brain takes care of opposite side of the body.
But yeah, so my age now is 24, and I'm still working at the school. My job is science technician. It's not full time, but it's a job that I love, and I really it's a good fun job. It's just things that I can do. It's very what's the word? Practical stuff. So even though I need to talk, it's more things that I can do after my stroke. So that's good.
Yeah, one of the things I like about this later video is that it really shows how much more expressive she is, right? If we're just focusing on producing speech, it's really hard to also have full expression, right? Also have like the ups and downs of conversation. And so you're starting to hear a little bit more expression and emotion in her voice here.
So, and we're still doing our stroke group, and that it's good that it's still going.
So she's in like a support group for folks who have had strokes.
But there's things that I want to do, some goals that I want to do, as maybe still working at the school, but maybe doing another job as well. And I was thinking about doing a jewellery, making jewellery at home, and then selling it online, or maybe actually face to face as well. I'm not sure what we want to do yet, because you can do classes and things like that, so I think I'm going to do that and see. But that's kind of exciting, because what I want to do is to have a house on my own, and be independently what I would do if I didn't have my stroke. And I think I can do that anyway. Doesn't matter, I had a stroke, I think I can do it.
And what sort of issues do you think you would have if you lived on your own? Because you still have...
There's issues still that numbers is still difficult. It's definitely better, and if I do some not exercises, but like trying to do some numbers all the time, that helps me. But things like reading and writing is still difficult. So if there's, you know, there's a letter that I need to read, if I'm on my own, it's going to be hard. Online, I've got some apps that help me, but it's still difficult. So that's a thing that it's going to be.
But you can probably find ways of working around it, can't you, and get support and stuff like that. So
yeah.
So the app she's talking about, there are things that will read things to you, increase font size, things along those lines. I would imagine that, you know, like AI might be really helpful for her, right? If she gets emailed something, put it into ChatGPT and say, can you summarize this for me, right? But yeah, there are existing apps that help folks who struggle like this.
Yeah, it's not like I can't do it. It's just going to be harder than, you know, another person that is not, it's not difficult to read and write like me. Like, that's just...
Yeah. So when you had your stroke, did you think it would take 6 years to get this far? It's really like slow recovery from aphasia for most people, isn't it?
Obviously, I didn't know anything about stroke and aphasia, and I'm kind of glad that I didn't know, because I would be really upset and depressed, really, because it's a hard thing because your mind is the same, but obviously you have problems with talking, so
Yeah, and this is one of the things, I mean, like for me in particular, this is like one of my biggest fears, right? There's a more severe version of this called locked-in syndrome, where your mind works perfectly well, but you can't communicate at all. This is like one of my biggest fears, that, you know, your mind is still going and you're still really intelligent, but people aren't able to understand that, right? Like that's really scary to me, and that says a lot about me as an academic, I think. That is a nice little overview of Wernicke's and Broca's. We're going to talk a little more about Broca's. I have some older videos of Broca's patients, and then we'll talk about some of the other aphasias as well on Monday. So if I don't see y'all, have a good weekend.